Coming up on the AFN Evening News.
The react training.
If you guys do not walk around, we're going to put you to the ground right now.
You, soldier?
Plus getting real-world experience at winning hearts and minds without the dangers of a combat zone. And one of the Navy's top sailors offers a peek at the future.
Is there a risk that sailors will leave the Navy? Yes.
The AFN Evening News. Real news for real people.
Good evening to you, and thanks for joining us tonight. I'm DeDe Cordell.
And I'm Army Sergeant Michelle Johnson. Is it 6 more weeks of winter, or will we get a reprieve from Mother Nature's wrath?
We'll have details on that in just a moment. But first, our top story tonight. Under the watch of armed Western security guards and monitors, Iraqi election workers are doing a second count of the country's historic vote. Elections employees are working around the clock at the tallying center inside Baghdad's heavily fortified green zone. This is the second phase of the count. Yesterday, workers at polling centers nationwide finished an initial hand count of ballots from more than 5,200 precincts. The tally sheets and the ballots themselves were then trucked to Baghdad under U.S. military escort. This morning, some 200 clerks there began logging data from the tallying sheets onto laptop computers for what could be the final count.
The violence in Iraq does not appear to be decreasing after the election, which is why troops heading into combat have to be more prepared than ever for this new kind of war. And troops just signing up are learning quickly the heart and soul behind the warrior's creed. Army Sergeant Mike Levine has more about how training is changing to keep up with the reality of the war on terror.
Entering an army at war made new troops at Army training centers focus themselves on one particular part of the soldier's creed. Standing ready to destroy the enemies of the U.S. in close combat.
Come on, 202.
Fort Sill, Oklahoma had artillerymen learning about operating in urban terrain in a town called Liberty City.
Kind of confusing because it's so hectic.
Oh, God! Liberty City may be a small slice of Fort Sill's training area, but it had a big mission: teach basic trainees the hard lessons of urban warfare without the long-term costs.
Mistakes can be forgiven here. There is no ultimate price for making a mistake here. As we know in Iraq, unfortunately, there is nothing notional out there. It's for real.
You need to go and get it right now.
Drill Sergeant Ray Okendo traded in his round hat for the Kevlar helmet of a squad leader, reinforcing situational awareness.
Make sure it's all safe, okay?
And weapon safety.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, it's a little bit different because you're actually leading the privates towards missions, while back in the rear you are teaching them and just watching them perform.
This situation is one that most of these soldiers could encounter on duty in Iraq or Afghanistan.
I just talked to your commander.
He needs to walk around. If you guys do not walk around, we're going to put you to the ground right now.
You, soldier?
Get out on the ground.
Are you like this?
What is he doing? Was he trying to go home? Is he trying to go to his house?
Drill Sergeant, we had him get out of our perimeter, Drill Sergeant. So he tried.
Did he get in the perimeter?
Yes, Drill Sergeant.
Evidently, he is allowed to be here.
That's my son.
What are you doing touching this?
Let him go. Get away from him.
At Fort Jackson, South Carolina, soldiers involved in their pilot program learned about the dangers of convoys firsthand, not sitting in a lecture hall trying to stay awake.
Soldiers hate to sit in the classroom, looking at PowerPoint slides. They like to be out doing things. There are some things we have to do in the classroom still, but we try to minimize that and get them out in the field doing what they're paid to do.
Today, you're holding up. Your buddies are dying right now.
Load it! Load it!
Drill Sergeant Brian Knight was in his element in this convoy ambush exercise.
Let's go! Let's go! Get the 240 in action!
We're pushing this stuff on them a lot sooner.
Ready? 1, 2, 3, go! Move!
Civilians entering the Army today understand a deployment to a combat zone is no longer just a possibility. It's a near certainty. With that in mind, this new crop of soldiers takes their training to heart.
Well, we're not going to be experts or anything like that, but we're going to have the confidence that we can do it because our drill sergeants are infantry drill sergeants. And I mean, it's still scary, but I'm confident that I'll be able to come through and I'll be able to pull people through.
And that's the intent of the pilot programs and the very heart of the Warrior Ethos training plan. Build warriors from the ground up with one mission in mind.
Preparing them for combat, we have got to do it because they are growing.
That was Mike Levine reporting. The war on terrorism is more than just an exchange of gunfire. It includes a campaign aimed at national stability, basic infrastructure, and winning the hearts and minds of the people. Gail McCabe has more on some of the military's initiatives to build these skills through real-world training in environments that are similar but less dangerous than Iraq or Afghanistan.
Major Orlando Benedict is fighting the war on terrorism the best way he knows how. As a primary care physician deployed to Ecuador on a medical readiness exercise, Benedict is a veteran of Afghanistan and knows he faces potential deployment to Iraq. He says what he learns from training events like this is how to win hearts and minds one by one.
I think we made a lot of friends just being able to understand and care, have a caring attitude with them.
In another part of Latin America, annual training exercises shape joint engineering resources. Over the last year, reserve component soldiers have materialized as key military assets in current critical missions, where the war on terrorism demands seamless coexistence of the entire team.
Basically, how well can we get the mission accomplished despite our differences?
We have seen this pestilence continue.
3 time zones away, in Delhi, India, a consolidated approach to the deadly threat of insurgency is the focus for senior military leaders from throughout the Asia-Pacific region. With open and candid contact between allies, a foundation is laid for the fight against a common enemy.
It allows them to become aware of sub-regional and national issues that we may not be cognizant of as individual armies.
Over the course of this last year, thousands of soldiers have experienced training in unfamiliar environments, places where surroundings are deliberately designed to test individual capabilities as well as the response of the team. Here at home, training embraces the proficiency of combat. In Central America, the lessons focus on learning to adapt. In India, the motivation is information and the benefits of exchange. For all, the aim is getting the job done regardless of the setting or the challenges.
And understand that people may have different needs, different parts of the world, gives you a new perspective.
A perspective reflective of today's global reality, where missions require military forces that are trained and capable of fighting terrorism anytime and anywhere. Gail McCabe, Atlanta.
Turning now to the top stories of the day and the war on terror. The Pentagon reports January was the 3rd month since the invasion of Iraq that U.S. troop deaths have reached or exceeded 100. An Associated Press tally puts the figure at 102. Nearly a third of those were from a single helicopter crash January 26th.
The ex-wife of an American contractor held hostage in Iraq for 3 months has asked the Reverend Jesse Jackson to help negotiate his release. Jackson, who has successfully secured the release of hostages several times since the 1980s, says he's confident the kidnappers will cooperate.
And in an effort to make the record clear, the CIA is preparing reports on Iraq's weapon systems prior to the U.S.-led invasion. One of them is said to conclude that Saddam Hussein gave up his chemical weapons program after the 1991 Gulf War.
Iraqi leaders are pressing the United Nations to lift its sanctions against Iraq. They also want the UN to stop using the country's oil revenue to compensate victims of the 1991 Gulf War and pay the salaries of UN weapons inspectors. Iraq says it is now internationally friendly.
The White House says President Bush will offer new details on Iraq in his State of the Union speech tonight, outlining his position and his push for democratic reform abroad. Press Secretary Scott McClellan says Bush will also use the address to hail Sunday's elections and vow to build on that success. Despite calls from critics for an exit strategy, aides say Bush will not provide a timetable for withdrawing troops.
Still to come tonight, a former commander-in-chief heads up the reconstruction efforts in South Asia.
Plus, the Chief of Naval Personnel gives sailors a look at what the future holds.
And knowing where we're heading requires knowing where we've been. And a look back at some of the biggest military news of the last year is coming up. Those stories and more when the AFN Evening News continues.
Having recently returned from Nigeria, I'd like to tell you about USAFE's security cooperation efforts. My visit was part of USAFE's plan to enhance and build alliances throughout our area of responsibility. USAFE teams have traveled to more than 20 European and African countries, engaging in vital exchanges with our partners. We're proud to be a key player and actively expanding partnerships in EUCOM as we prepare for the many challenges of the 21st century.
The world-class people of U.S. Air Forces in Europe are postured to respond to any mission, anytime, anywhere. In fact, when we get the call to jump, we don't waste time asking how high. By then, we're already in the air.
Seen in 56 countries across 5 time zones, you're watching the award-winning AFN Evening News. Real people, real news.
Thanks for staying with us tonight. U.S. troops aren't the only government workers helping with the rebuilding in South Asia after December's deadly tsunamis.
That's right. The former commander-in-chief will now join the effort. UN Secretary General Kofi Annan is putting former President Bill Clinton to work as the UN's special envoy for tsunami reconstruction. In addition, Clinton will work toward resolving rebel conflicts in Indonesia and Sri Lanka.
2004 kept America's soldiers fully engaged from Iraq and Afghanistan to South America, Korea, and even the continental U.S. Soldiers marched on and in some cases laid down their lives in the defense of freedom.
Tonight we take a look back at some of the biggest news affecting military members and their families. George McNamara has more.
2004 tested the mettle of America's soldiers, not only for what they stand for in the defense of freedom, but the mettle surrounding them. As Operation Iraqi Freedom passed the 1-year mark, insurgent attacks escalated and IEDs lay waiting for the next military vehicle to pass within striking distance. Soldiers needed protection in the form of up-armored Humvees.
None of us wants to send a young man or woman into harm's way without the adequate protection.
By year's end, some 6,000 up-armored Humvees were in theater, as well as another 10,000 reinforced with up-armored kits supplied in Kuwait.
It's saving our boys and ladies and what have you overseas lives, and that's more important than just a job.
2004 saw troop rotations at their highest level since World War II. For some soldiers, it marked their initial deployment in the war on terror. Others headed back for a second time, if not more.
The page we are about to write will be one that stands out.
Meanwhile, the Ghost Riders of the 5th Battalion 20th Infantry Regiment rolled on. The Army's 1st Stryker Brigade combat team patrolled the streets of Mosul, each mission validating the vehicle's performance on the battlefield.
But ultimately it comes to whether or not the soldier is capable and well trained.
While the Strykers soldiered on, the Comanche got axed. Once considered the future of Army aviation, the Comanche program was terminated for good.
It's a big decision. We know it's a big decision, but it's the right decision.
2004 was also the year of Abu Ghraib. An Army report into detainee abuse at the facility identified 44 alleged instances of detainee abuse committed by soldiers as well as civilian contractors.
There's so many people doing so many hard things and doing it well with good results. I mean, how do you weigh that against the few who don't follow the rules?
In Bosnia, Task Force Eagle marked the end of the 9-year mission as Stabilization Force 15 cased the task force colors and welcomed the inauguration of the European Union Force.
Your service to the United States of America, the European Command, to NATO, and to the people of Bosnia-Herzegovina has made a powerful difference.
Wounded soldiers like Specialist Sean Lewis and Captain David Roselle inspired us with their courage and bravery. We met Lewis at the Walter Reed Army Medical Center as he tried on a prosthetic leg to replace the one he had lost in a mortar attack in Iraq.
You need to look them square in the face and say you can do anything your mind tells you can do.
Meanwhile, Roselle, who lost part of his right leg to a landmine in Iraq, turned up at the Army 10-miler, where he led a team of amputees across the finish line.
It's nice to inspire able people, especially when I pass by them.
But the top story of 2004 belongs to the heroes who never returned. The more than 1,000 of America's sons and daughters who sacrificed their lives in the defense of freedom. George McNamara, Alexandria, Virginia.
In other news tonight, the Chief of Naval Personnel is making several stops at bases around Europe to talk to both sailors and leadership. Petty Officer Steve Smith takes us to Naval Air Station Sigonella, where that visit offered a glimpse at what the future holds.
Chief of Naval Personnel Vice Admiral Gerald Hoeing made a stop at Naval Air Station Sigonella.
The highlight of his tour was a long stop for an all-hands call where he performed a re-enlistment, presented awards, and spoke on various projects and the direction the Navy is heading. However, the majority of the meeting was devoted to answering the sailors' questions.
So what's our responsibility?
One of Vice Admiral Hoing's concerns is getting information to sailors about training and certifications with the Navy's Sea Warrior program.
As a part of what initially started out as Task Force Excel and now is embedded in Sea Warrior, in the 5-vector model is a qualifications and certifications vector. We believe that it is in the Navy's best interest as well as our sailors' best interest to gain civilian recognized qualifications and certifications. Is there a risk that sailors will leave the Navy? Yes. But we also believe that with the types of retirement benefits and the programs that the Navy has to offer, that by giving certifications and qualifications that are relevant in the civilian community, they will stay with us because they can complete that career in the Navy and then have a robust career and be prepared for a life after the Navy.
The Vice Admiral also went on to compliment the achievement sailors make every day around the world and also right here at one of the Navy's busiest hubs.
Yeah, we are so proud of the work that the United States Navy is doing and the sailors in the United States Navy. They are delivering every day incredible capability for our nation. And right here at Sigonella, you know, this is as good as it gets from the knee award winning galley over here to the busiest postal system in the United States Navy. You all are doing great work, and I just want to say thanks.
Reporting from Naval Air Station Sigonella, I'm Petty Officer Steve Smith for AFN News.
One of the world's most famous hibernating weather forecasters has made his prediction. Today is Groundhog Day, and you know what that means. Pennsylvania's Puxatawny Phil gets to tell us how bad or good winter weather will be from now on. Well, he emerged from his hole and saw his shadow. That means we're looking at 6 more weeks of winter if the tale is true. But Puxatawny Phil isn't the only one with a shadow today. Devon Crawford and her big sister played hooky from school to find out what Dad does all day at work. Dad is 21st Theater Support Command's public affairs guru. The girls flashed a few photos and jotted down a few notes to help Dad cover a story on vehicle inspections. They are here because it's Job Shadow Day. Not only did the Crawfords experience Dad's daily grind, they watched how other soldiers did their jobs.
I learned how to record stuff very well and to drive a truck. You can see a whole bunch of Army people doing their work and stuff, and you can learn how to do it too.
Devon says she's definitely going to be a reporter, just like Dad when she gets big.
Oh, that is just too cute.
So cute.
Nothing like a young reporter to be. Doesn't know what she's in for.
Not a clue, not a clue. I tried to tell her, but she wouldn't listen.
Some of our affiliates will break away now for local programming, but don't go away. When we come back, Morale, Welfare, and Recreation making great strides in improving the quality of life for troops and their families.
Plus, these troops are also hoping to bring a smile to your face and a song to your heart. Meet the men and women of the 1st Armored Division's band. Stay tuned. You're watching the AFN Evening News. Real people, real news.
Get out and see the world, but don't spend the world doing it. Visit ITT. It's your golden ticket. Stop in at your information, tickets, and travel office, and they'll hook you up with the trip of a lifetime.
You know, it just breaks my heart to see soldiers who have served honorably while deployed in harm's way, redeployed back home only to die in an accident. Soldiers have a natural tendency when returning from deployments to try to make up for missed leisure time. I ask leaders at every level to be proactive about safety. Set the example, counsel your soldiers, and then supervise. Make it home safe. America's Army. Cool.
It's a great inspiration to me to go out and hear the national anthem played and watch the flag raised and know that all of those who have fought and died before me, that I'm paying tribute to their sacrifice and to the things that they've given here. So I would encourage others to go out and take the opportunity to pay tribute to those who have gone before us and observe colors in the morning and enjoy that and take it not on as a duty but as a privilege to be able to stand there and salute the flag.
Once again, here's DeDe Cordell and Army Sergeant Michelle Johnson. Real people, real news.
To complete any mission, big or small, a unit's soldiers all must be on the same sheet of music. Specialist Christina Snowden introduces us to a commander whose soldiers are always in sync.
They boost morale and spread pride among the ranks of the 1st Armored Division. They're the division band under the command and conduction of Chief Warrant Officer 3 Matthew Morse.
All the musicians are responsible for their own part, but they're also responsible for listening around and playing together as an ensemble. And it's it's the same team concept that applies to anything else the Army does. It's kind of my job to take all those pieces and make sure they're integrated into a coherent whole.
Morse began his Army band career as an enlisted soldier and musician. He attended the Warrant Officer Bandmaster School to get the opportunity to command. In his 18-and-a-half-year career, Morse has played for government dignitaries and even American presidents. But it's not just the celebrities in the audience that excite him.
I love playing for soldiers. I love playing for civilians. I love seeing smiles on people's faces as we play. I love seeing people tap their toes, get up and dance. That's where the fulfillment comes.
Your next opportunity to catch Morse and the band is in the Bad Kreuznach and Wiesbaden Fasching parades. Specialist Christina Snowden, AFN News.
Well, from entertainment to sports to support programs, Morale, Welfare and Recreation is always working toward a better quality of life for troops and their family members. Florence Newman gives us a look at some of the latest advantages provided by MWR.
In 2004, ACS advanced their reach into the Army community with Army One Source. This information referral line is available to all soldiers and their families 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
We have to realize that 70% of our families live off post. And a lot of times they commute quite a distance to go on and off post. So we want to make services available where the families actually are.
Later in the year, Army One Source evolved into Military One Source and is now available to all 4 services. Another CFSC program available to all military personnel is the Armed Forces Recreation Centers. The newly expanded Shades of Green Resort in Orlando, Florida, reopened in April with an additional 299 rooms.
The value is unbeatable. There is nothing on Disney property that compares to our quality and product and service for the prices that we're able to offer the soldiers.
Or you can take the family to Europe for a stay at the new Edelweiss Lodge and Resort in Garmisch, Germany.
This is a 12-month destination resort. The programs that we offer vary somewhat from season to season, but you can always make reservations depending on the season that you'd most prefer to be here.
This 4-star resort opened for business in September and has been booked solid since. 2004 was a good year for the world-class athlete program. 15 soldiers qualified to compete in the Summer Olympic Games. Major Mike Ante won a silver medal in marksmanship representing the Army and the U.S.
It's always been a dream of mine since I was 15 years old to win a medal, so I finally kind of realized my dream.
Senior leaders demonstrated their continued support for Army families by addressing issues raised at the annual Army Family Action Plan Conference.
It's forced us to look down deep and understand exactly what quality of life means for our families, what type of action plans we should have, which ones have held and haven't broken, and which ones we need to reinforce.
MWR rounded out the year by touching the heart of a soldier with the 2004 Soldier Show.
That was Florence Newman reporting. For more information about what's coming up this year, check out the website armymwr.com or just pay a visit to your local MWR office.
It's time again for some of our affiliates to switch to local programming, but when we come back, a history lesson with a little extra kick.
Plus, it's not exactly the catwalk, but these model soldiers are modeling for you. Stay with us. The AFN Evening News continues in just a moment.
As an Army family physician, when one of my patients needs specialty care on the local economy, I feel confident that they're going to receive the best possible care. Our TRICARE Preferred Provider Network colleagues meet the same requirements as our military healthcare providers. We monitor the quality of their care, and we respond to valuable feedback from our patients. When you use the host nation medical system, be assured that you will receive the same quality of care that you would receive from us.
Looking to get more out of your tour of Europe? Visit the dutyeurope.navy.mil website. You'll get answers about living in Europe. Plus, it has something for the traveler: site destinations, driving directions, and toll charges. Enjoy your time in Europe and let dutyeurope.navy.mil be your guide.
The annual Soldiers Magazine Almanac features a pullout that most soldiers will likely want to keep. It's the new uniform guidance poster. Army Sergeant Heather Ann Bozeman gives us a look behind the scenes, the model soldiers modeling for you.
8 4th ID soldiers came from Fort Hood, Texas to AFIS headquarters in Dallas for a different type of mission. They put on their war paint, suited up, and took orders from the experts.
Step towards me a little bit.
These soldiers are models for uniform correctness. Their work this day pays off for the whole Army.
This is going to help our soldiers, most definitely.
Everyone using the 2005 uniform poster to double-check their Class A uniform will benefit from the efforts of these model troops.
We've been getting thanks from the people from the mailroom up to majors, generals, so it's been a great day.
This is the first uniform poster update since 2003. Sergeant Heather Ann Bozeman, AFIS headquarters, Dallas, Texas.
Those are always so helpful. For many kids, history is just something to read about in books or something to memorize for that upcoming test. But with a little creativity, teachers and their students can make a history lesson come alive. Airman Peter Mellon takes us to the history fair in Landstuhl, Germany.
North Carolina authorities say a Fort Bragg soldier and a